The scene opens with Veruca, Danny's fiancé, wearing a white wedding gown and showing it off to her friends while talking to them. 20-year-old Danny overhears her speaking with her friends and discovers that his fiancé is having an affair with the guy behind his back and is only getting married to him because he is a well-established man and will become a successful cardiologist very soon. She is after his money, not him. Furthermore, he discovers that his soon-to-be wife will take advantage of his kindness and consideration to continue the illicit relationship with her boyfriend, even after the wedding. While conversing with her friends, Veruca also makes fun of his appearance and his large nose. Danny is heartbroken by all of this. He decides to leave his wedding before the ceremony because his heart is shattered. He goes directly to a bar to forget his sorrows, where something interesting happens to him. A very beautiful, young woman sits next to him. When Danny tells that woman that she has dropped her purse, she yells at him, rather than being appreciative and thankful. She initially treats him shabbily because she assumes he will hit on her, just like all the other guys have in the bar. But he again reminds her that he was just telling her about her dropping the purse, and this is when she realizes her mistake, and at the same time, she notices the ring on Danny's finger. Danny was about to tell her the truth, but he refrained because he couldn't admit to her that he was a loser. As a result, he slightly exaggerated the truth and lied to her about the bad behavior of his fake wife. Out of sympathy, Danny got the chance to sleep with that young, attractive woman after faking a sad story about his wife and 14 adopted children. Danny then decides to become a plastic surgeon to get rid of his large nose. 23 years later, Danny is a well-known plastic surgeon in Los Angeles who plays the part of being in a troubled marriage to win the hearts of women and avoids romantic commitments that might result in further heartbreak. He often considered discarding the ring, but he was unable to do so because it was dear to him. It was the thing that allowed him to get intimate with various women without developing feelings for any of them. The only woman who was aware of his schemes and fake stories was Catherine Murphy, a divorced mother of two, who served as both his friend and office manager. At a party, Danny takes his cousin Eddie with him, with whom Danny has performed plastic surgery to enlarge his most private part. A girl rushes over screaming that a child's knee is bleeding after being scratched. Danny proposes that he could stitch it, as he is a plastic surgeon by profession. Danny takes off his ring and sets it aside to tend to the kid's wound. Soon after, Danny meets Palmer, a young math teacher of the 6th grade, and is captivated by her beauty. As Danny sees her for the first time, everything else becomes blurry to him, and she becomes his center of focus. She thanks him for expertly stitching the child's knee. Together, they spend their time learning more about one another. Danny finds out that Palmer's parents had a very contentious divorce, and that she left Los Angeles after growing weary of picking sides. She believes Danny's lie that he has never been this close to a girl her age before. He started developing deep feelings for her. Danny appeals to Palmer as well, and the two kiss. They end up spending the night together on the beach after getting lost in the heat of the moment. Danny admits the following morning that it was the best night of his life, and Palmer begins to believe that something could happen between the two. Palmer requests that he should take her out on a formal date. To share the contact number, he asks her to get his business card from his pants pocket, where she finds his wedding ring. Palmer gets angry at him, knowing that he is married. While attempting to lie to her, Danny utterly fails. Palmer becomes even more enraged and departs, throwing the ring on his chest. Danny is advised by Catherine to be honest with Palmer if he likes her and wants to be with her. Danny goes to Palmer's school to meet her. He chases her as she flees, while he calls out to her. She throws the flower bouquet Danny had brought her in the trash. She expressly informs him that she won't be another woman, and that she doesn't date married men. Instead of telling her the truth, Danny tells her that he is in a horrible marriage, and he is soon going to get a divorce. Palmer blames herself for ruining a marriage, but Danny persuades her by saying that she was not to blame. A few days back, he had already signed the divorce papers. He claims that his fictitious wife, Devlin, is having an affair with Dolph Lundgren, and that is why he is divorcing her. But despite all the fake stories, Palmer doesn't believe that Danny would leave his wife, and she insists on meeting his wife. After a brief argument, Danny returns to his best friend Catherine, and asks her to take on the role of his fictitious wife Delvin. To prove to Palmer that his first wife is attractive, he forces her to shop for new outfits, heels, and handbags. To change Catherine's appearance, he even takes her to a stylist. When Danny first sees Catherine, she looks completely different from how he remembers her. He finds it hard to believe that Catherine is the girl walking towards him. Catherine conducts herself in front of Palmer, exactly as Danny had wished. Together, the three of them eat and converse. After convincing Palmer that she should have Danny all to herself, because their relationship didn't work out, Catherine gives her blessing to Danny and Palmer. When Catherine was about to leave, she receives a call from her children. She briefly sheds Danny's fake wife persona and engages in conversation with them like a true mother. Palmer assumes Danny is the father of her children. Palmer says she loves kids and demands to meet Danny's kids. Danny then has a private meeting with Michael and Maggie, Catherine's children, to persuade them to play along and pass for him for an afternoon. He gives each of them the aliases Kiki D and Bart. Danny is forced to agree to Catherine's children's demands after they ask Danny to compensate them for their actions. Catherine gets angry with Danny when she learns that he is going to use her children to hide his lies. Danny argues, claiming it was her mistake for picking up the phone in Palmer's presence when everything was going well. Danny finds out that Catherine had lunch with Brian, the receptionist at Dr. Jervitz's office. He tells Catherine that during their meeting, he made Michael smile and forced Maggie to eat 3 pieces of meat, which Catherine has never been able to do. He responds to Catherine's argument that she would never let her children become involved in his lies. Danny then asks Catherine to do this for her children. Danny, along with Catherine and her kids, enter the play center. As planned earlier, Danny introduces Palmer to the children, Michael as Bart and Maggie as Kiki D. Maggie uses a phony British accent, which she is learning in acting classes, when speaking to Palmer. Palmer questions Catherine about her nationality, so to save the truth, Catherine lies and says they sent her to an English boarding school the previous year, which is why she has a faintly British accent. Michael acts very morosely in front of Palmer. Danny cautions her to act normally if Maggie wants to get paid. Catherine thanks Danny after Danny brings food for the kids, and they have it without throwing tantrums. Palmer makes an effort to make friends with Michael, but he doesn't respond. By claiming to be upset that his father, Danny, broke his promise to take him to Hawaii to swim with dolphins, and instead cancel the trip because he met her, Michael uses Danny as a bargaining chip. Poor Danny has to take all of them to Hawaii. When Danny is about to kiss Palmer at the airport, Danny's endearing cousin Eddie interrupts them and unexpectedly kisses Catherine. Eddie, who has assumed the identity of Dolph Lundgren while posing as an Austrian, surprises them all. Palmer is overjoyed to have another travel companion. Because she doesn't want him to go along, Catherine leads him to a corner and asks him to act ill and to get away from her. She discovers that he is eluding his ex-new girlfriend's boyfriend at this point, and he doesn't have any option but to go with them to Hawaii. Finally, Catherine and Danny are compelled to bring him along, adding another expense to Danny's burden. Right after reaching Hawaii, they all go to the beach. Danny and Eddie watch Palmer as she comes out of the beach in a bikini. Danny enters a store in the following scene and begins looking for an engagement ring. Eddie is surprised that he was looking for an engagement ring, because he thought Danny would grow tired of Palmer after a week or two and will leave her just the way he has done in the past. However, Danny assures him that Palmer is the sweetest and most attractive girl he has ever met, and that he really likes Palmer. Danny also discloses to Eddie that he is thinking about proposing to Palmer. Eddie sings a humorous song about his cousin's predicament. Palmer asks Eddie what he does for a living, and Eddie responds in the guise of Dolph that he is a sheep shipper. The constant babbling of Eddie bores the rest of the group. When Eddie starts lying too much about how he met Catherine and goes off the line, Catherine takes Danny away. Danny tries to stop Catherine as she walks away while stating that she can't put up with this drama anymore. The exact moment they run into the real-life Devlin Adams and her husband Ian Maxstone Jones. Catherine discovers that Ian created the iPod there. Devlin informs Catherine that she recently ran into their old friend Sandra Wernick, and that the unfortunate Sandra is getting divorced and also has a child. Then, when Devlin asks Catherine if she is married, Catherine responds that she is, introducing Danny as her husband, rather than acknowledging that she is a single mother of 2 kids. Catherine claims that Danny is one of the best plastic surgeons, in order to make Devlin envious. When they return to Palmer and Eddie, Danny and Catherine engage in a cute bantering. The 6 of them go on an adventure together the following morning to enhance their bonds. There, they come across a waterfall, where Palmer dives in to swim, and Maggie jumps in to wash the sand off her body, while mockingly yelling that she loves her daddy. Michael is afraid to dive in, because he believes the water to be too deep. Catherine tells Danny that he can't swim. Danny then points out that he spent all of this money just so Michael could swim with the dolphins, and Michael replies that he hadn't given it much thought. In order to save time, Catherine asks Michael to stay with his pretend father, while she removes her dress and dives into the water. She looks stunning, and Danny and Eddie can't take their eyes off her. They are utterly shocked by Catherine's new look. Palmer wants to look after the children, when Danny wants to leave them with Eddie and Catherine, claiming that he was with the children during the day, and that Eddie and Catherine will take care of them at night. But Danny has to accept Palmer's wish. Catherine asks Danny to call her if he needs any help. Danny mocks Brian, whom Catherine had lunch with earlier. Catherine sarcastically notes that Danny is bothered by the fact that she went out on lunch with a man. Catherine gets irritated by Danny mocking Brian. She states the truth, that a guy had lunch with a woman without making up a fake lie, which hurts Danny as he starts to compare himself with Brian. Eddie feels excited that he is finally alone with Catherine as she enters the room, but she punches him in the stomach, putting an end to his joy. On the other hand, Palmer and Danny along with the kids play games. Michael breaks down in tears while he is playing, because his real father doesn't have time for him. Maggie consoles her younger brother, and Palmer looks at Danny, who is the culprit in her eyes, before walking away in anger. Danny asks the kids to play along for 2 more days, while putting them in bed. To show Palmer, they give hugs and laugh while acting like the happiest family possible. Palmer walks in and informs the group that because she and Catherine will be at a spa the following day, Danny will be watching the kids all day. The following morning, Danny takes a series of random photos to convince Palmer that he is playing with the kids when, in fact, he is not. Just for the sake of the camera, they pretended to be having fun together. When Maggie says that they never had fun with their real father, it touches Danny's heart. Michael will learn to swim from Danny before his mother gets back from her spa day. Michael questioned Danny's ability to teach him to swim in just 4 hours, where his friend took the entire summer to do so. Danny throws Michael into the pool, after telling him he will do it the same way his grandfather taught him to. Eddie joins their group, and they eventually succeed in teaching Michael how to swim. Palmer and Catherine are impressed with Danny's ability to relate to children. Devlin, Catherine's friend, shows up out of the blue. Before things could become more complicated and confusing, Eddie pushes Palmer into the water to divert everyone's attention. Devlin extends dinner invitations to Catherine and Danny. Palmer complains about Eddie, saying that he pushed her in the pool, which was wrong, but Danny defends him, saying that this is how guys make friends. Because it is his first night alone with Palmer, Danny tries to reject Catherine's request for going to dinner with her, when Palmer proposes to make an intimate time proposal to him. Catherine emotionally blackmails Danny by saying that it is the first time she is asking for the favor, and requests him to give Palmer the phone when he is unsure of what to say to Palmer. To spend the entire night away from the hotel, Catherine asks Eddie to take Palmer out with her. Eddie asks Palmer to hang out at Catherine's request so that they can get to know one another better, which is important for the kids too, to have good symmetry in the family. Palmer asks Danny if he is okay with it, and then agrees. At the dinner, Ian tries to brag by ordering the most expensive bottle of wine, and Devlin exaggerates how much she loves her husband Ian. After being questioned by Devlin, Catherine tells a lie about having met Danny at a concert. Palmer is taken to a hotel on the side of the road by Eddie, who is still posing as Dolph in front of Palmer. Suddenly a girl starts crying because her pet sheep has stopped breathing. She calls out for a veterinarian's help. Eddie had previously revealed to Palmer that he makes his living by selling sheep, so when he is forced to save the life of a real sheep, who choked on a toy whistle, he almost blows. Eddie declares the sheep died, and as he prepares to flee for his life, the sheep begins to make noises. At this point, Eddie is certain that he is in serious trouble. During the dinner, Ian excuses himself. Devlin asks Danny and Catherine to look each other in the eyes and share one thing they like about the other. Catherine tells Danny that she adores him and enjoys spending time with him, while gazing deeply into his eyes, and praises him for his big heart, kindness, and humility. Then, with the same intensity, Danny tells Catherine that he admires her generosity, her smile, and her openness. For that brief moment, they become completely absorbed in one another and begin to sense a connection. Devlin and Catherine are asked to act as hula girls for the evening by Ian. The host asks the audience to vote for their favorite hula girl, while the two girls dance. Devlin and Catherine fight in the competition till the end, leading to a tie between the two. Devlin requests the tiebreaker because she is unable to accept her defeat. The host then introduces the coconut smoochie game as the tiebreaker, in which the couple moves a coconut from their torso up to their mouths, without the use of their hands or any other thing. Danny and Catherine unexpectedly get physically close to one another, while trying to bring a coconut to their mouths. Danny then compliments Catherine's perfume, and eventually they succeed in doing so before Devlin and Ian, helping Catherine win the competition. When Catherine notices Devlin's jealous and dejected expression, she becomes extremely happy. When they return to the room, Catherine realizes that it was for the first time that they both went out alone, and enjoyed their together time a lot. Danny expresses sympathy for Brian in his comment. In response, Catherine accuses Danny of being obsessed with Brian, which is why he keeps dragging him every time. Danny argues his case by saying he finds it impossible to imagine the two of them dating. Catherine reveals that Dr. Jervitz has asked Catherine to serve as his manager, as he is relocating his practice to New York City. Danny suddenly becomes serious and inquires if Catherine is sincere, but she slaps him playfully, and replies that she was just curious to see his response. She is certain that Danny needs her in order to work, because he depends on her for even his signs. Danny asserts that Catherine created the Brian story to make him envious, and he is relieved to learn that there is no connection between Brian and Catherine. Danny and Catherine, who are still enjoying their spark they developed during the coconut smoochie game, are about to kiss when Maggie and Michael interrupt them. They bid each other goodnight with heavy hearts. Danny was sure that Catherine couldn't sleep, so he decides to go back to her, but meets Palmer and Eddie on his way, who were returning from their dinner date. Since Palmer learned of Danny's engagement plans from an inebriated Eddie, he suggests that she and Danny get married right away. She becomes so ecstatic that the next day she just wants to wed Danny in Hawaii. She is eager to begin a life with Danny. When Catherine shows up, she is shocked to learn that Palmer and Danny are getting married the following day. When Danny asks Catherine for her opinion on the matter, she admits that she is happy for both of them, but she will not attend the wedding, as it would be awkward to attend her ex-husband's marriage. Palmer was ecstatic and happy about her wedding the entire night, while Danny and Catherine had trouble falling asleep. When the feeling becomes too much for Danny to tolerate, he calls Catherine at midnight. Danny gets Catherine's opinion on whether suddenly marrying Palmer is a good idea. He is reminded by Catherine that this is precisely why they traveled to Hawaii, and that, as an adult, he is free to do whatever he wants. Danny fears that it will cause tension between him and Catherine at work. However, she cuts the call before informing him that she will be taking a job in New York City to get a fresh start, requesting him not to worry too much. The next morning, Catherine compliments Palmer, who is now dolled up in her white wedding gown. Because Palmer believes that Danny is still in love with her, she asks Catherine if she still wants to be with him. When Danny is around Catherine, he always smiles and cracks up at her jokes. Catherine tells Palmer that Danny and she are just well acquainted, and that there is nothing between them. Catherine assures her, saying she is the girl for him. Catherine visits a bar, where she meets Devlin once more. When Devlin inquires about Danny, Catherine admits that she faked being married to him out of fear of Devlin finding out the reality. Catherine tells her the truth, that she is a single mother, has 2 kids whom she loves more than anything in the world, drives Honda, has a dial-up internet, got a 2.7 GPA in college, not 3.4, and also that she is the assistant of Danny. After telling her everything she had been holding inside, Catherine feels relieved. Devlin couldn't believe her, because she could tell Catherine and Danny had a genuine connection which she could feel. Catherine acknowledges that she might be in love with him, but that it doesn't matter, because he is currently marrying someone else. Devlin admitted that she is divorcing Ian due to his homosexual orientation, and the fact that he did not invent the iPod, but rather made his money by suing the Los Angeles Dodgers after being injured by a foul ball. Catherine understands that if they had tried the truth-telling techniques earlier, their life would have been better. Danny, who overheard Catherine admitting she might be in love with him, emerges from behind. Devlin leaves the 2 of them alone. Trying to divert Danny's attention by getting information about the kids, Catherine learns that Palmer has taken them out for ice cream. Catherine comes to know that Danny didn't marry her, because the one he loves was not with him. Catherine knows Danny is talking about her. She tries to point out to Danny that she has 2 children, and is not as young and attractive as Palmer. But Danny brushes it off by saying that Palmer is nice, but she is not Catherine. And he also admits that he loves her children more than anything in the world. He desires to spend 23 hours a day with the children, and the final hour with Catherine. Catherine's heart melts, and she kisses Danny. The next scene shows how well things worked out for everyone. Palmer meets a tennis player her age on the plane home. Michael got to swim with dolphins, and Maggie is about to begin a 3-week acting course with the real Dolph Lundgren. When women inquire about Danny now that he is wearing his wedding ring, he replies that he is married to a woman who doesn't beat him or cheat on him, and that he intends to spend the rest of his life with her. And the woman's name is Catherine.